The rest of the world is busy reframing what identity means and who owns it. Meanwhile, the physical security industry is busy debating credential formats. That gap is what this episode's about. I'm Odess, and this is Secured. Let's get into it. There's a lot happening right now, like a lot, and this week's episode reflects that. We have a ton of news. No brief, but a quick thought on DHI's conference, plus the security breakdown article I loved, and a quick my view. But first up, news of the week. Story 1, Hivewatch. Confidence versus performance is how I summarized it. Hivewatch just released their 2026 State of the Physical Security Operations Report, and the headline stat is the one I want to sit on for a minute. 93% of the physical security leaders say they are confident their program would detect a coordinated threat. Only 19% say they would always meet their own service level agreements, though. Read that again, but only 19% actually performing to their own standard. That is not a small gap. That is a structural gap between perception and reality, and it lives inside the same organizations. There's more from the report that compounds this. False alarm rates are approaching 44% at large enterprises. Half of all operators say their top priority is eliminating manual alarm triage and routine notifications. AI adoption reaches 85% among the highest maturity programs and only 43% among the lowest. The maturity gap is the real story. The highest performers are pulling away, and they're doing it with AI doing the work that humans used to do manually. The lowest performers are still in manual mode. The gap does not close by accident, and it does not close slowly. Great work from the Hivewatch team putting this report together. I'd take a look at it. Go read it. All right, story 2. This one's about the wallet convergence question. 14 U.S. states now support driver's license in Apple Wallet and Google Wallet. iOS 26 added passport-based digital IDs. The government-issued identity credential is migrating to the same device that, in a growing number of deployments, is already replacing the traditional access control badge. These are not separate trends. They are the same trend arriving from two different directions and converging on the same hardware our industry manufactures, sells, and installs and services. The industry has debated mobile credentials as a badge alternative for years, but the conversation has stayed narrow. It has been about credential formats, about read range, about which reader supports which phone. The bigger question is not being asked. What happens when the badge, the driver's license, the building credential, and the payment token, they all live in the same wallet? Who governs the trust across all of them? Who decides what gets verified, what gets shared, and with whom? That is not a credential question. That is an identity governance question. And right now, nobody in the physical security industry owns it. If we do not move upstream on that question and actually have the conversation, someone else will answer it for us, and they will not ask for our opinion. Story 3. ASSA ABLOY acquires Centennial Dock and Door. This is strengthening its direct channel presence and service footprint across Canada. Centennial was founded in 1983, is headquartered in Ontario, and brings roughly 375 employees and approximately 137 million Canadian dollars in 2025 sales to the ASSA ABLOY Entrance System division. The deal is accretive to earnings per share from day one, which is typically their playbook. This is a clean bolt-on read. Service-oriented businesses in a mature market. Deepens distribution in the geography ASSA ABLOY has historically accessed through intermediaries. It fits the industrial segment and defends margin. There's no platform story here, really, and there doesn't, I don't think, need to be. Not every deal needs to be transformative. Sometimes you buy a business that runs well and gives you more direct control of a channel. Centennial is that deal. All right, so story 4 this week, Microsoft in Project Solera. I loved this one. This is the badge that gets reimagined. This one generated the most conversation actually in the FiSec Collective this week, and for good reasons, and I appreciate everyone that engaged here. Microsoft, they unveiled Project Solera, their new agent-first computing platform. One of the first concept devices that they showed is a wearable badge. They actually said access badge, with a touchscreen, a fingerprint sensor, a camera, and 5G connectivity. They're not calling it a credential. They're calling it an AI agent you wear. The conversation in the community we had was real and honest. Some of the community pushed back hard on me. The point was that Microsoft has a poor track record in this space. The Zune comparison came up quickly. And there was concern is that a concept from a company that will not ship it does more damage than good by setting unrealistic expectations, potentially slowing investment in actual solutions. That's a legitimate view, and I respect their opinion. Another person added important context. He described Microsoft's chip-to-cloud architecture and noted this gives them a potential path to controlling a master repository of non-person identities with real person identities behind them. That's framing. If that plays out, it's actually quite significant. Where I landed and where I pushed back in the thread, the concept has merit independent of whether Microsoft ships it. We've had companies like One's Technology out of Turkey and others who have been trying to sell the market on a more intelligent badge form factor for years. What Microsoft does by floating this is it gives permission. It gives companies like HID and honestly anyone watching a reason to take the conversation serious. I said it in the thread and I'll say it here. At some point, we have to want to be something more than what we've been. And we should be building concept designs ourselves instead of waiting for the enterprise software world to tell us what our own product category looks like. The badge has always been the thing our industry hands people to prove who they are. Microsoft just reframed it as an intelligence layer that knows what you need, surfaces information, and connects you to your agents in the workflow. Whether or not Solera ever ships, that reframe is now in the market. The question is, who in our industry is going to pick it up and run with it? All right, so to a fifth story, Allegion goes vertical, and I mean really deep vertical. I gave Allegion not only one, but two high fives on the same day this week, but both were earned. Allegion just launched a student housing platform that bundles credentials, operations, and resident lifecycle management for off-campus properties. This is a vertical within a vertical strategy. It's not a product launch. It's a go-to-market decision, and those things are very different. The collective had a lively conversation about this one too. They asked the fair question, where's the product here? The point is that the press release describes a marketing and sales vertical effort more than a new product. Others were skeptical based on past experiences with their software execution, and I get it. My read is different here, and I said so in the thread. Allegion has shown real depth in two areas specifically, education and multifamily. This launch sits at the intersection of both. When a company with a track record goes deep in a vertical they already know, the execution risk is lower than if it's, something new, and it goes beyond just the press release. This is also a byproduct of the software eating the old truths of our industry. It wasn't very long ago a hardware company has to go somewhere when hardware gets commoditized. Going deep in a vertical with solution-based positioning is one of the smarter paths I believe a lot of companies are going to be taking. I'm watching this one because I really like the idea here. All right, story 6. Identity Access Management, IAM, hits $100 billion in deal capital. The framing gap is the story here. Windsor Drake's Q, one of 2026 IAM valuation report documents, over $100 billion in deal capital circulating in the identity and access management sector. Not physical, but digital. The IAM market is projected to reach $70.5 billion by 2034, growing at 14.2% compound annual growth rate. The multiples are being driven by what investors are calling identity for AI strategies. I like that. The physical access control market is roughly, as they say, $12 billion today. I believe it reaches $70 billion. The gap between where AIM is and where physical access control is, though, is not just a size gap. It's a framing gap. IAM is infrastructure. Physical security is still positioned as product. I'll say it again. IAM is infrastructure. Physical security is being positioned as a product. One of those framings attracts capital, strategic partnerships, and talent at scale. The other one does not. It is not about the blue blinky lights here. It's not about the tech specs. It's about how the category is described to buyers and investors. And right now, physical access control is losing that framing contest badly. All right, so now story 7. CBRE on hybrid work and what it means for access control. CBRE had a great report. It's the 2026 Global Workplace and Occupancy Insights Report. It covers 303 million square feet of client space across 5 years study period. The main takeaway is direct. Hybrid is the permanent model, not a transition moment anymore. Structured anchor days are giving way to optional presence days. Spaces is being redesigned for flexibility, not headcount. The buildings are changing to reflect how people actually work now. Most physical access control systems installed in those buildings, they were built for fixed groups, fixed schedules, and fixed roles. They were built for a world that no longer exists. The question for the industry is whether we close that gap from within or whether enterprise software sits on top and extracts the value instead. That is not hypothetical. That is the actual competitive dynamic forming right now in the market. In story 8, Okta for AI agents goes generally available. Okta's product for AI agents went generally available last week. The product gives autonomous AI agents their own identity, lifecycle, permissions, and audit trails inside Enterprise IAM. The architect treats agents as first-class identities, not as bolt-on weird things, but actual first-class identities. Meanwhile, in our physical security world, most access control systems are still managed through shared accounts, token credentials, and manual provisioning workflows. Most have ignored AI agents entirely so far. The gap between how the enterprise IT world is governing machine identity and how physical security is doing it is widening every day. It will close eventually. My guess is a few companies inside the industry close it, and many more outside of it are going to do it as well. The question is whether you act before that answer gets written without you. And that was 8 stories. A lot of news, I said, this week. So now to the security breakdown and the briefs. No brief this week, like I said, but I did publish a LinkedIn article for my trip to the DHI All Access Conference in Nashville, and it covers a lot of ground, and I think it's worth hearing. The energy in that room had a specific feel. The best way to describe it, it was like a why not and why not me moment. I felt it in other parts of the industry too, when you go to PSA, at a card and credential conference, at ASSA events. It is what a transition moment looks like and it feels like from the inside. The 4 persona model showed up clearly in Nashville. You had some nevers, a lot of maybes, a growing list of yeses, and I walked out focused on the maybes and the yeses. The message I delivered to the room was direct. The market has shifted from a $10 billion hardware business to a $70 billion software business. In architectural opening professionals, those specifying Division 8, Division 28, they either sit at the center of that or they get cut out of it. This is not a neutral position. Move upstream into identity, schematic design conversations, or show up at 50% construction documents and do data entry. You choose. You own the full connected opening or hand the scope to someone else. Again, you choose. The credentials and the liability designations, the AHC, the CDC, the CFDAI, the EHC, are risk transfer tools that matter to owners, architects, and insurers. All the things that they get studied and they get credentialing for. AI can generate a schedule. It cannot defend a specification and deposition. Those distinctions, those designations are defensible assets. The architectural opening professional of the future can defend that. The biggest takeaway from Nashville for me, stop spending the time and energy on people who have no intention of moving. Focus on the yeses and the already theirs. Bring those people together. You can't coach a 5'5" NBA guard to be a 7-foot center. It's called genetics. The same thing here. So stop trying. The full article is on LinkedIn, and it's worth a read if you're in or adjacent to that world. And to the security breakdown this week, it's a feature piece from Kevin Friedman, president of Maze Marketing. It made me really happy to see this. I've known Kevin for years. Great guy. You should check him out. I wanted to spend a moment on it because I think it's genuinely good what he wrote. The title is, You Are Selling Cameras. They're Buying a Good Night's Sleep. And it captures something this industry gets wrong over and over. The core argument is simple. Physical security marketing sounds like a spec sheet. Resolution, read range, frame rate, OpenAI, mean time between failures. But buyers are not losing sleep over credential formats. They're worried about passing audits, fixing offboarding gaps, and being able to answer the executive who asked them who had access after the incident. The product helps solve those problems. But if your marketing only talks about the product, you make the buyer do the hardest work. Kevin names 3 things that change when you stop marketing the box. The buyer becomes the hero, not the technology. Proof matters more than adjectives, and your marketing should sound like the people who actually show up at the dinner, not like a different company. He also adds a point that is most urgent now. Buyers are running your deck, your one-pager, in your website through an AI tool before they even talk to you. That tool is not impressed by words first. Vague messaging used to cost you attention. Now it can cost you a meeting before you even know it was possible. So stop marketing the box. Start marketing the relief. Sign up for the security breakdown. We send it out today. Thank you, Kevin, for writing this and sharing the article with us. All right, to my view now, and I'm going to keep it real short because we covered a lot in the news today, 8 stories. This one's a bit different, and for all you soccer or football fans out there, I think you'll like the name and it'll resonate. But you don't have to like sports or follow Liverpool or even get into soccer to hear the message behind this story. I saw a post this week on LinkedIn about Andy Robertson's farewell video to Liverpool Football Club. It included his wife and his children. It was incredibly emotional. It was really well done, and it spoke to me in a different way. We live in a world where social media and bloggers make it remarkably easy to attack people from behind a screen. And sometimes it's worth stopping to remember that those people on the other side, they're not robots. They're human beings, and they should be treated as such. You don't have to agree with everything someone does. You don't have to like somebody. You don't even have to like every decision they do, but they are human. I've forgotten that at times. I've definitely forgotten that in the past. But some of the behavior I see directed at people in this industry and social media and newsletters and write-ups is something else entirely. It's sad. It's gross. It says more about the person writing it than the person being written about. And it's easy to forget that there's a person on the other side. It shouldn't be. And that's it. So keep that in mind this week. All right. So in closing, that's the episode number 18 of Secured. We posted 3 series of Secured from the security event in Birmingham. And I'm really proud of it. And I would ask you to go check it out. The intro and episode 1 are now live. We took 45 interviews and we weaved a story across all the voices, unlike anything you've seen in this industry. I promise you. And we continue to drop episodes of West to East 3 times a week. There's no shortage of content. If this is your first time here, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review if you found it valuable. And if you're not yet in the FISEC Collective, that is the online global community. The link is in the show notes. We've got over 1,600 practitioners, executives, and builders talking about this industry every day of where it is today and going tomorrow. It's where the real conversations are happening. Thank you. I'm Odess, and this is Secured.